Alright, hey guys. I'm going to be making a video two-tabling the 55s today. And we're starting out here. I'm waiting for the second table. And we have played three hands. He folded his button, I raised my next button, and then he just folded there. I have no information on these players. It's the first time I've played 55s in a little while. We know he folded already his first two buttons and folded out of position once, so I'm assuming he's pretty tight, probably more tight than his optimal. So we make our standard c-bet, check button on the turn, and the question here is more or less whether or not we think we're going to get ace-high to fold. It's early in the match, and I don't really want to, it's not really good to try to fold out an ace or 10 early on in the match, readless, especially against lower stakes players. They're just going to call you down every single time. So I avoid building the big pot and just let it go. There we go. So we have our second game up. And I will c-bet again here. Now the better card, this might be a decent spot to two-barrel, because now I expect him to float ace-high again, but I'm going to go ahead and just let it go again. And I'll probably, well, we'll have to see how much he continues to call out of position. And then we'll see how we can adapt. So I'm just going to go ahead and check call here against a relatively tight player. Against someone who I knew to be a station, I would possibly lead the turn, but it puts you in some tough spots. And here I'll bet a little bit bigger than standard and try to get looked up by a 10 or maybe hero called from a 6. Here in the bottom, early on in a match, I'm going to go ahead, this board has a ton of draws, very, very wet board. I'm just going to go ahead and check behind bottom pair with a strong kicker and see how he plays. And I will opt to check the turn as well and just check it down. For 40, it's kind of worth it. Not to mention the fact that we are winning some percentage of the time. It lets us know how maybe he played top pair this way, strangely. It can tell us a lot of things. So he value bets pretty thin, which is good to know. And what it means if your opponent is value betting thin is you can do like I did there and check behind middle or bottom pair more often and get value out of letting him bet, rather than if you know your opponent calls down light all the time, then you get value by yourself v-betting thin. So I'm going to go ahead and limp here. I'm going to start introducing a limp, see how he reacts to them. He seems pretty tight, so I'm going to stab a lot of flops. Here I will continue to c-bet even though we flop trips. Now he check calls the flop and min leads the turn. I'm just going to let it go. Here, it's close, but I definitely don't want to play for stacks, and I don't mind seeing a river. Obviously it's a really bad river and we're just going to flat. He played sevens like that. But when the heart draw completes, if you get re-raised on the turn, you're really not going to be good ever. And I don't mind at all just checking it down there. Now here he min 3-bet us. There's no way we're gonna, here I'm gonna 2-barrel. No, yeah. He min 3-bet us a little bit more. He made it from 60 to 120. So it was just 60 more back to us. I'm going to go ahead and raise here for value. A lot of times I would just call, but I'm not making it too huge, and I expect to get looked up by all, Jack, Queen, any under pair, 8, 7, 6s, maybe even Ace, King to call there. If he was very aggressive, I would not do that, because you're also going to get value shoved on a ton. This player, I don't expect to shove a lot there, I just expect to get called a lot, and I expect to be ahead of his calling range and enough to make it good. I'm also going to start working in some limps, maybe some min raises. So Ace-Jack here, it's still pretty early in the match, we don't have any good reads on him. Ace-Jack is fine, should be towards the bottom of your 3-betting range early on. But it's definitely okay, and we will fold to a 4-bet. I see a lot of mid-stakes players who get much too involved and would shove there. Really, that to a 4-bet is like the worst possible spot to shove. I led this flop, so I'm going to go ahead and bet the turn again. Our kicker is good enough. If I had 5-6, 5-7, 5-8, I would not bet the turn. So, I also see people 4-bet shove it a lot early on, which against an unknown 3-betting range, especially if you think they're kind of tight at all, is going to be a really bad play, and I just see it done way too often at lower stakes. This board is really wet, so I'm going to go ahead and c-bet more. It's very draw heavy given an out of position calling range. They're going to hit that quite a bit, and they're going to be re-raising with any pair plus a draw or top pair. There are a decent amount of players, if I had a read, that I would overbet that flop on, bet 140 or 160 to induce them to shove, which is surprising how often they do. But readless, it's not really the best play. This is really close. I would c-bet this like 75 or 80% of the time, I think, but I don't like to play all of my hands the same. You really want to mix up your frequencies some part of the time. And now with that turn is terrible, so I'm just going to go ahead and check it down. I'm going to 2-barrel small here. Value betting, obviously. And here, that is a terrible bet to see. Both these spots are pretty bad. I think I'm going to fold here, actually. The pot just wasn't very big, and he had it. Here, I can't see me folding, but the odds are really good, so I can't see me being ahead that often either. So now I'm going to be raising limps just 3x instead of 4x, especially against a fairly passive player. I'll be raising 75. Some people I'd be 3xing against, but he seems to not play. He seems to be reasonable post-flop. He's not too nitty. He's calling when he needs to call, even if he seemed to be a little bit too nitty pre-flop. And let me see something real quick. This hand, he flatted ace-jack out of position, so we really don't have much of a choice but to fold there. We can't not give him credit. Alright, so I'm going to switch over to min raising on both tables. We're kind of getting run over post flop. We're not running into any good hands, and feel like we should obviously have a solid edge on any player at the $55 level. So here I didn't c-bet and I didn't bet the turn, and I will just check behind the river. I'm just looking to check down. For min bet, we're obviously calling again. I don't know, I just can't see folding there, even against him who's only done it for value. So he's actually picking up the aggression a decent amount. 15 big blinds, I'm going to be limping cards that have showdown value. I'm also going to be min betting post flop and not 3/4 most of the time. Depends a little bit on board texture, but most of the time. Hold on one second. There's somebody at the door. I will be right back. This is a clear shove against anybody. Sorry guys, I really apologize for that. I wasn't expecting anybody, so I don't know who it is. But so let's talk about that queen king hand real quick. When he 3x's his button, we really don't know his range very much given how he's been playing. He hasn't been 3xing a lot, not at 25-50. But queen king is just so strong. There's no possible way we can fold there, and flatting is really bad. Hold on one more second, I'm really sorry. Here I'm going to for 30 big blinds is kind of close. I don't love a shove, but against a low stakes player I expect to get looked up by under pairs. Like I expect 2s through 6s to call a lot here, so I will shove. As well as obviously flips are going to call us, and we're getting a lot of folds. Okay guys, I really have to apologize to you there. Sorry for the interruption and breaking the video. So here it's kind of close whether I want to min raise, get it in, or limp and play post flop. I chose to limp on both tables. Wow, both of these players have become really aggressive compared to how the game started. If that was a min raise, it could be close to a shove, but we're getting kind of shallow, and blinds are going up in 1 minute. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my Nash equilibrium table to have at our disposal when we get to 5100. Here's a spot where I just don't think he's limping a strong hand ever. I really don't think we're getting called there very often at all. So I don't mind shoving connectors, 1-gappers. I want to shove like 2-4, 3-5 there, but anything 5-7, 6-7 upwards, I think it's fine. It's not great, but I just think he's folding almost all of the time there. So we're really card dead on this table, but you see I haven't gotten crazy. I haven't done anything really stupid up here. I didn't get it in unnecessarily light, so I just try to, you do what you have to do. You fold the hands, you get low, but we're going to play 5100 good, and hopefully it turns around for us. So again, I didn't raise a limp because I don't expect him to flat. I would expect a shove, and if he limp shoves, we're going to be way behind. And also because we just shoved a limp, his frequency of limping like a weak ace or a hand to set us up would be a lot more likely. So I'd rather just check this down. And he did have the ace. So here's a really standard call. We get a little bit lucky here, but he still has a lot of outs. So here we have to fold. We just can't call there. We'll lose a flip. I haven't min raised much at all, so I'm hoping he gives it a little bit of credit. He doesn't. He snap 3-bets us, so. Alright, he had it. So we get in against jacks. Had 5 outs, I guess. But we lose that one. No big deal. I'm going to pull up another. We got him, we got him all in a couple of times. We lost the flip, which is unfortunate. But we had sucked out once big before that. He's just limping a ton. And I think I'm going to shove again. Because, again, if it was within a couple hands of the last time we shoved a limp, I would fold. Or I would just check behind, obviously. But then he went back to raising, and I just don't think he's going to be thinking far enough ahead to try to set us up like 10 or 15 hands later, or whatever it was. So another really standard 5100 bot. He flops a set, and it's GG for us. 0-2, but we didn't really, we just got run over in both games. I don't think there was anything we could really do. Both players were a lot more aggressive than I expected either of them to be. And we'll just start up some new games and play a couple more. Alright, so here we go. Both of the last games went to 50-100, which is pretty unusual. Especially in turbos and at lower stakes. I think people tend to stack off a lot lighter, or games tend to end a little bit quicker than maybe they do at high stakes. But I guess it depends on who's playing. So I'm actually going to switch this game. It seemed I got floated and re-raised a ton last game. I'm going to be c-betting a little bit less. And I'm also going to try to bring my c-betting frequency down a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and just 3-bet to 200. We get a terrible, terrible flop. Here, I'm calling all the time, I think. Against an unknown player, I know what I do, at 550s. I'm not sure what I do here. I'm going to go ahead and c-bet here. And he snap shoves on us. There's no way that we can call there. I'm not really sure if at these stakes a check fold is better. I don't really know a player's tendencies. But we will just... I don't know. I think against an unknown, I can't see how you can c-bet. Especially on a 9 high flop, but I could be wrong about that. So I'm going to switch over to min raising. He's playing very, very aggressively already. Check min raised us, shoved over a c-bet. And I will just try to exploit his aggression by playing smaller pots and getting him in big pots in worse situations. So again, I'm just going to be experimenting with c-betting half pot against players who are, like I said, calling out a position a lot more, or raising our bets a lot more. So here I'm going to go ahead and just bet pot. And I'm going to pot the river as well. A little bit less. I'll bet 220 on the river. But he led, so I will go ahead and shove. I mean, we really cannot be worried about gut shots here. He might have a missed draw, it's true. He also can have a lot of weaker twos and I think a lot of two pairs. It looks like he had the missed draw. So here after he checks, we turn the pair. We have a flush draw. We also have a very strong kicker. I'm going to bet a little bit closer to pot. And I'm going to do the same on this river. 260 into 320. I expect a high diamond or some kind of draw on the turn, a decent frequency, but also I would expect a jack to call there and call the river almost all the time. So here on an all low board against an aggressive player, I bet more the last hand. My bet seemed large, so I'm going to go in and bet here, hoping for him to re-raise me. Here I'm just going to be value betting the whole way, and I'm actually going to value shove this river. Yeah, clubs came in, a couple of draws came in, but I don't think he plays either hand that way. So I'm going to go ahead and shove and expect to get looked up. Not a huge amount of the time, but I expect to be ahead most of the time that I'm getting looked up there. I really don't expect an aggressive player to play draws. When the straight draw came in on the turn, he didn't raise me, and I expected he would with the flush draw out there. And with a flush draw, I would expect to get raised earlier. So he 4x's it pre down here, and I just flat. He can have worse aces a decent amount of times, lower pocket pairs, which we're doing very well against and can put in tough situations, and we have a gut shot here, so I'm going to go ahead and call. His c-bet is really standard. Obviously, everybody's going to be c-betting that board. I don't know. We don't know that he's very aggressive, and I wouldn't expect a lower stakes player to two-barrel here too much. Maybe, though. That's alright. We're just going to let it go. He min 3-bets us. I don't see much value in 4-betting, so I'm just going to go in and flat. I could raise here. We don't really know his min 3-betting range at all. So I'm going to go ahead and just flat, and I'll raise the turn for value. So when he checks to us, I'm going to do something kind of unusual and bet under half pot. It's something I like to do, especially against worse players. I think they get pretty frustrated with a lot of hands like pocket pairs in between there and stuff. I also think it could come off looking... I never expect him to fold an ace there ever. And I guess I can just barrel and try to get an ace to call. Big bet there and then a shove, but I think I'd rather get value out of a pocket pair, and you'd be surprised how often a bad player will re-raise a small ace there, trying to protect like ace 7 or ace 8. So I'm going to stick with min raising, fold 10-4. I'm not going to see bet bottom pair. A lot of times against passive players I would, or against an average player, but they both have been aggressive enough. We turn 2 pair, and I go ahead and bet. I missed what he showed us there. He raised and showed us 2-4 suited. Fold 10 deuce. I think the player's going to put pressure on us. I don't want to call out of position too much, and although I do call 7-8 against a decent amount of people, I also, it's fine to fold. You don't want to be calling too much out of position. It's not going to play great when you're getting barrels. People are barreling at you. Wow. I'm just checking his raise sizes before. He 4x'd there, 3x'd, 3x'd, 4x'd. I'm going to go ahead and call. I'm also going to call here. And call that river. So, one second. Down here, checks the flop, leads the turn. It can be a decent range against a lot of players. You bet really small in the river. We know he's been kind of aggressive, but we don't really know anything about him. I lean towards a call, but the river could be a fold. But it's not really great to call the turn and then fold the river, especially with the size. I think if you call the turn, you have to call the river. But you can fold the turn as well, I guess. And the other hand we were looking at up here, oh yeah, was just, he was kind of crazy. He 4x pre-flop and then just open shove the 4-4-7 flop. So I'm going to go ahead and c-bet here. I went to 3xing on both tables, not really paying attention, so I'm going to switch that back. Wow. Wow. That's about all I can say there. Really, really interesting, because it's so unlikely that he played a hand that way. And I don't know if it's worth it to try to, I don't know. It's not terrible to make a hero call here, but even if he has like 8-9 or a gut shot or something, he's still going to have decent equity against us, and he just seems really bad. So I'm sure we can find a much, much better spot, and I guess he could play a 6 or a 7 like that. In reality, when the 6 comes in on the turn, that's a scare card for him, so we could check the 7 again and decide to check raise it. I don't know why we would slow play a 6 for 2 streets, but So, gut shots came in, but also a lot of open-ended turned into pair and a straight draw, and we were very strong draw. So I'm just going to flat here. I can't see me really folding a river, but I don't think there's going to be a ton of value in raising. I think he's going to show up with 2 pair or a decent hand, at least some percentage, a decent percentage of the time when he makes that raise. So I'm going to opt to limp down here. Again, this video I'm limping most of my marginal hands with showdown value. When players start to adapt to that, I change it very, very quickly. So that's certainly not always my limping range. I'm going to check raise here, actually, if you bet. And since he didn't, I'm going to bet. I would normally, it depends on the river, I don't know. I was going to say I'd normally 2-barrel there, but it's not a great board too, depending on the river. So again, I'm c-betting just half pot on most boards. Here, I'm not even going to have any part in that hand. Against an aggressive player, that flop is just terrible for us. And it looks like both of these might go into 50-100 again. He min 3-bets us, more or less. But king 5 off is just too weak to call, so we're going to let him get away with it. He's been 3xing every button. Queen 9 suited is pretty strong. It plays well against a calling range, so I'm going to go in and shove and expect to get a decent amount of folds. You can go ahead and, if you haven't watched the Advanced Concepts part 1 of 2, where I do a lot of that reshove math in the video, in the slideshow, and I think it's pretty easy to see that against someone raising such a wide range, it's going to be a profitable reshove. I don't like to, if people ask, I don't like to not let them know I'm making a video of them. I don't know how I would feel to find out myself in a video randomly and someone commenting on my play. So it's not a great flop for us, but our hand has no showdown value, so I will c-bet. And if that was a non-club turn, it might be a good spot to double barrel. I just expect these players to call all of the time. And again, if that was a low club, say the 2 through 7, not something that brought in 10-jack or a gut shot, I would re-raise this river raise, but I think I just have to give it up. And here again, it's not a great flop for us at all. Basically the same board, but our hand has no showdown value, so we have to c-bet. So it's interesting down here. He called 2-5 suited out of position and flatted a, I'll talk about this hand in a second. It's basically the same thing. Called 2-5 suited out of position and flatted a 2-club flop, which is fine because the pot wasn't very big. Up here, it's basically just the same thing. We had shoved this once before. He folded once and then he went right back to 3xing. We're going to be way ahead of his range. And I just expect to get a lot of folds there. I'm still assuming he's probably raising even a safe assumption of like 50% of his buttons, which I believe he was certainly doing far more than that. That would have been a profitable shove. I'd say, you know, a standard player is raising 50% and calling 15% there. And he almost certainly was raising more than 50% if you go back and look at his history of buttons, even after I'd shoved one. So he folded 2 times out of like 9 buttons maybe. I'm just going to try to get to showdown here. and then obviously bet the river for value. Guess he played a 10 like that. Wow, he checked top pair, checked it on the turn and the river. The turn paired bottom pair, so I mean it's not the worst spot in the world to check there, but I think I certainly would have gotten a bet in. This video is around about 40 minutes. It will have at the conclusion of this game just under, so I think I'm going to call it a video. Hopefully we don't go 0-4 here for the video. I really think we played fine, but obviously I'm sure you guys prefer to see some successes rather than failures, but just learning the play and talking through hands I think is the important thing. The King 4 hand here, I'm going to shove that. It is a shove. Hold on. I'm going to ignore the door till the end of this video. King 4 hand, he limps. We don't know anything about his 5100 play. As a standard, it does not play very well post-flop. It has showdown value, but he's shown us he's reasonably aggressive, so I don't think he's going to let us get to showdown often enough. Against a passive player, I might be more inclined to try to check it down, but against an aggressive player, I'm absolutely going to shove. And here we're going to reshove. I think against him, the way he's played thus far, we'd have to fold if he shoved. Sorry. Yeah, so if he shoved, I think we're going to have to fold if he shoves with Queen King there, just because he's already limped a couple buttons. It shows us that he's not playing, I don't want to say not playing very well, but he's not playing shove-fold poker at 5100, and because of that, his range is going to be a lot more weighted towards pocket pairs or aces, especially for almost 12 big blinds. So because of that, I think we would have to fold against a player who is playing shove-fold or is a more reasonable, experienced player at these blinds. I would normally call. Here's a really interesting spot. I don't think he ever checks behind an ace. I don't want to tank too much, or I think a king will look us up too often. I don't think he ever checks behind an ace. So because of that, I'm just going to shove to maximize fold equity. I also don't expect kings to fold there much anyways, but some players would play just much too nitty here and would fold a weak king there, like a decent pocket pair. But I mean, a pocket pair is not really going to check behind much either. Here again, against a better player, playing shove fold, I would call. Against him, I'm going to fold. That is absolutely a shove for 10 big blinds. We can't really limp it. Unless he's going to let us see flops a very, very high percentage of the time. It's just not going to be a good limp. Here also is a shove, but just barely. That is a terrible call by him. To call with 10 big blinds there, I don't know. It's just really bad. At best, in most circumstances, you're gonna be like 40%. He got the miracle there and was 65 or 70%, but we got a little bit lucky. But still, just the play on his part is really terrible, and ours, it's profitable. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Please feel free to leave me some comments or go ahead and discuss it in the forums. I know going 3 out of 4, you might have some questions. Maybe you guys think I didn't play great, so just let me know. Let me know where you think you saw some mistakes, or maybe you want something explained to you. I'm willing to work through whatever you guys want to do. So let me know how you liked it, and I will see you next video. Good luck.